Here we are, ScreenRant.com, ladies and gentlemen, some horror news. And I'm not a fan of Screen Rant, but they do a lot of horror stuff, and it gives me something to talk about based on their articles. And here we have 10 iconic final girls from horror movies ranked by Badassness. And this dropped yesterday. I wanted to talk about this with you guys. Like I said, coming up in January, we'll have a channel dedicated to true crime and horror. So kind of warming you up for that, producing some more horror content over here, because after the first year, it's all going to be over there. Horror's final girls tend to be badasses, but some, like Halloween's Laurie Strode, are more badass than others, like Friday the 13th's Alice Hardy. Alice was from Friday the 13th Part 1. They've had some really good final girls. Ginny in Part 2. It was Christy in Part 3. There's been some just great final girls in these movies. And yeah, you see Neve Campbell and Laurie Strode here, two icons. Scream queens, as it were. 2022 has been a terrific year for horror movies, introducing some great new characters in the classic final girl canon. Survivors of horror films like Maxine from X, Naru from Prey. Naru, that's not a horror movie, nor is it a good movie, nor is she a good character. And the Carpenter sisters from the Scream prequel will surely rank alongside slasher icons like Laurie Strode and Sally Hardesty when fans reflect on the scary movies that audiences have been treated to this year. Except Sally Hardesty in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix adaptation was absolutely just deconstructed, and she was made to be stupid. Horrible decision making. Final girls are some of the most badass characters in all of horror cinema. But some of them, like Ellen Ripley from the Alien franchise or Sidney Prescott from the Scream franchise, are more badass than others, like Alice Hardy from the original Friday the 13th. Number 10, Sally Hardesty from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And like I said, yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, yeah, she was a badass final girl. She escaped. But in the Netflix adaptation, when she became a Texas Ranger, her decision-making was terrible and led to her demise. In his new book, Cinema Speculation, Quentin Tarantino describes Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre as one of the few perfect Hollywood movies. It's an intense thrill ride from beginning to end that creates as much terror with what is left out of the frame as what is included in it. Yeah, I can agree with Sally Hardesty being on there. But as great as the movie is, its final girl, Sally Hardesty, is more of an every woman than a badass. She deserves her happy ending, escaping from Leatherface's lair, jumping into a passing vehicle, but she catches a lucky break when a commuter happens to be driving by. Absolutely. Number 9, Lila Crane's Psycho. When Marion Crane is shockingly killed off at the midpoint of Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller Psycho, the camera scrambles to find a new focus. It follows her killer, Norman Bates, for a while before taking the perspective of Marion's sister, Lila. Lila takes it upon herself to investigate her sister's disappearance when the police fail to crack the case. She ends up uncovering Norman's deepest, darkest secrets and lives to tell the tale. I haven't watched the original Psycho in forever. Number 8, Nancy Thompson, A Nightmare on Elm Street. There she is. Wes Craven shook up the slasher formula with a supernatural element in A Nightmare on Elm Street. The movie's final girl, Nancy Thompson, figures out how to outsmart the dream-stalking killer Freddy Krueger and confronts him on his own metaphysical turf. And Nightmare on Elm Street is a tremendous franchise. A lot of fun. Part 2 is really gay, though. We just watched that, but it's a great franchise. A lot of fun, except just cut off after Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Just stop there.
No running in the hallway.
When it becomes clear that she can't deprive herself of sleep forever, Nancy takes matters into her own hands to defeat Freddy. I really like that they brought her back in Dream Warriors. Number 7, Alice Hardy, Friday the 13th. Oh, Alice is a little low. Alice Hardy is the only character to survive the first Friday the 13th movie. She doesn't just make it through the night unscathed. She takes out the killer to avenge her friends. But after decapitating Mrs. Voorhees at the end of the first film, Alice gets killed off right at the beginning of the second one. And that was because she wanted to take her acting career in a different direction and didn't want to come back, even though it would have been much better if they brought her back. Kevin Bacon, ladies and gentlemen. In Victor Miller's original script, Alice was much more complex and a flawed character, but a limited budget meant she had to be given a more straightforward characterization. And I think they were going to lean into that with the relationship between her and Steve Christie, which was only alluded to in one scene, I believe, in the original movie when they were outside painting the cabin when all the other counselors got there. They have that brief conversation, and she talks about going home, and he's like, oh, if you don't like it, I'll send you home. And it's like, okay, so there was something between these two that we never got expanded upon for character development purposes. Number 6, Tree Gelbman, Happy Death Day.
Looking like a whore.
Never seen it. Never seen it. Let's see. Tree Gelbman is killed by a masked assailant early on in Happy Death Day, but then she wakes up and goes through the same day all over again. And when she gets killed at the end of that day, she wakes up on the same day again. Yes, that's probably why I never watched this movie. Like Phil Connors, Tree is trapped in a time loop, except this time loop has a murderer instead of a groundhog. To escape from the time loop, she has to outwit her repeated killer. Yep, never seen it.
I never seen it.
Number 5, Jess Bradford, Black Christmas. The trend-setting holiday horror classic Black Christmas was one of the first mainstream movies to feature an abortion storyline. Its heroine, Jess Bradford, is one of the great feminist heroes of horror cinema. She doesn't just take on the killer, she takes on the patriarchy.
You kidding me? Are you kidding?
Did that really just happen?
So that just happened.
Although her earliest iconic role was Juliet Capulet in Franco Zeffirelli's Shakespeare movie, Olivia Hussey earned the lucrative title of Scream Queen after her empowering portrayal of Jess in Black Christmas. I haven't seen that one, and I was telling my awesome editor, Goodstuff, off air, in between takes, I was like, I had to look it up. I had to look it up to see which one she was from. I couldn't remember if she was 06 or the original one. Like I said, I haven't seen the original Black Christmas in 20 years. That one come out, like I said, 1974. Then you had the 06 one with Katie Cassidy, that little sexy hot blonde chick that was in the new Melrose Plays, I think. Yeah, and Taken. She always dies. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street. She always dies in movies. Number 4, Aaron Harson, You're Next. I have not seen this movie, so everything is new to me on this. I probably saw a preview, didn't think it looked too good, and just moved on with my life. Adam Wingard brilliantly satirized the rich in You're Next as a darkly comedic chamber piece about a wealthy family convening at a remote country mansion is interrupted by a band of killers in animal masks. What they don't count on is every woman Aaron Harson, one of the rich kid's girlfriends, being ready to exact revenge.
Curiouser and curiouser.
Throughout the movie, Aaron uses her courage, quick wits, and a series of gruesome booby traps to thwart every single killer that invades the house. 2013, so this is wow, this movie's old. I mean, it's 9 years old. I like I said, I was thinking this came out like in the last couple of years. I was like, I don't remember this at all. So I probably did see a trailer 9 years ago and just was like, whatever. But number 3, Laurie Strode, Halloween. Oh wow, she's 3. No, this is, are we, because Alice Hardy was number 7. Neve Campbell's going to be up here somewhere. She's probably going to be number 1. I haven't looked at the list. I did not look ahead before I read the list. I just saw the article and I'm like, I want to cover this. The trope-defining final girl character against which all others are judged is Laurie Strode from Halloween. Played by horror movie royalty Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie is a plucky, relatable high schooler who has no idea what she's getting into when she accepts a babysitting gig on Halloween night. When Michael Myers arrives to kill her, she doesn't scream and cower like her fellow teens. She steps up to the plate and very nearly kills the unkillable monster. That is a classic movie and one I will never tire of watching. And if you're wondering, the order goes 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and then the H2O and Resurrection and all that. Number 2, Sidney Prescott, Scream. Neve Campbell manages to look beautiful even with blood all over her face. After revamping the slasher genre with a paranormal aspect in A Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven revitalized the struggling subgenre yet again with the sly self-awareness of Scream. Neve Campbell's lead character, Sidney Prescott, flies in the face of every convention of the final girl trope. Most notably, Sidney bends the rules to achieve the horror movie paradox of being sexually active and single-handedly defeating the killers. This was one of the movies I saw at the Cuevada's Penthouse, along with Austin Powers, Cable Guy, and there's one more. It was an animated one. Number 1, Ellen Ripley, Alien.
Well, I can drive that loader. I have a Class 2 rating.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I don't know how I overlook her, because when they say horror, I always think of Alien as like sci-fi, but it is sci-fi horror. Sigourney Weaver proved just how badass female action heroes could be with her turn as Ellen Ripley in Ridley Scott's sci-fi horror masterpiece, Alien. Like the rest of the Nostromo crew, Ripley is introduced as a regular, unheroic person. She and her co-workers are essentially the futuristic spacebound equivalent of truckers.
Give him the fall back.
You're cut off! Do something!
But by the end of the movie, after a bloodthirsty extraterrestrial has picked off the rest of the crew, she proves her grit by killing the monster and escaping from the doomed vessel.
So that's it. There you have it.
So there you have it, folks. 10 iconic final girls from horror movies ranked by their badassness. Did they line up with your rankings at all? And I feel like we could probably take out at least one of the lower ranked ones. And Ginny, I would say Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2 is a almost more badass than Alice Hardy, because Ginny completely survived. She's, you know, quote unquote still alive to this day canonically, or although she might be very old in terms of like her character, but she survived. She outwitted Jason when he was still in human form. As you remember, that was Pillowcase had Jason. She outsmarted him, you know, tricked him, and defeated him that way. So Ginny was very resourceful, smart, and a very powerful female character. You know, yeah, she was scared, but she rose above that fear to survive and triumph over a much more powerful adversary. So that's my addition to the list. I think she should be on there, possibly over Alice Hardy. But now it's your turn to let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you agree, disagree? Give me your top 3 final girls in the comments. I'd love to hear what they are, and then I'll give you mine in a pinned comment. So I'm Etepo Queen of the Place to Be Reviews. Thank you to my editor, Goodstuff Comixgater. We've been here with all these. We don't see you. Have a great day. Pleasant tomorrow. We'll catch you on the next one.
It's better to burn out than to fade away.
I could do this all